From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday delivered his fourth State of the Nation address or SONA, where he touted the country's better economic condition and reiterated the government's commitment to further improve the lives of Filipinos. Latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA showed that inflation settled at 1.4% in June this year as government measures helped ease food prices. The number of employed Filipinos, meanwhile, went up to 50.29 million in May this year from 48.87 million in the same month in 2024. President Marcos said the government would ramp up efforts to provide more employment opportunities for Filipinos. The President said the Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE, the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI, the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD, the Department of Tourism or DOT, and other government agencies would provide opportunities to unemployed Filipinos. President Marcos Jr. said the government would continue to provide funding with low interest rates and no collateral to more entrepreneurs. The chief executive said the government would also support intellectual property and offer free training and capital to help lift people out of poverty and enable them to establish businesses. President Marcos also urged businesses to invest in the Philippines, especially in the country's agriculture sector.
Kung datos lang ang pag-uusapan, maganda ang ating ekonomiya, tumaas ang kumpiyansa ng mga negosyante. Bumaba ang inflation, dumami ang trabaho. Ngunit ang lahat ito ay palamuti lamang, walang saysay, kung ang ating kababayan naman ay hirap pa rin at nabibigatan sa kanilang buhay. Kaya sa huling 3 taon ng administrasyon, ibubuhos pa natin ang lahat-lahat. Hindi lamang upang mapantayan, kundi mahigitan pa ang pagbibigay ginhawa sa ating mga kababayan. Hindi na ako magpapaligoy-ligoy pa. Maayos na hanap buhay talaga ang mabisang pantiyak laban sa kahirapan at laban sa gutom. Dumarami ang mga nalilikhang hanap buhay sa ating bansa ngayon. Magpupursige ang DOLE, DTI, DSWD, kasama pati ang DOT at mga kaugnay na ahensya sa paghahanap ng paraan at ng mga oportunidad para sa natitirang 4% ng ating puwersang manggagawa na hanggang ngayon ay walang trabaho. Ipagpapatuloy natin ang pagbibigay ng puhunan sa mas marami pang negosyante para makapagsimula ng maliit na negosyo o micro-enterprise sa mababang interes at walang kolateral. Pati na rin ang kapital at proteksyon para sa mga yamang isip. At para sa mga tinataguyod natin mula sa kahirapan, patuloy tayong nagbibigay ng libreng training at puhunan para makapagtayo sila ng sariling negosyo. Hindi tayo titigil hanggang halos 2.5 milyon maralitang pamilya ay matutulungan natin na magkaroon ng kanilang sariling maliit na negosyo. Palalaguin natin ang mga industriya, mga pabrika ng sasakyan, hulmahan, electronics, biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, critical minerals, telang Pinoy, halal, construction, mga planta ng kuryente. Ngunit, nananawagan pa rin ako sa ating mga negosyante. Mamumuhunan kayo sa ating agrikultura. My single resounding message to the international business community is this: the Philippines is ready. Invest in the Filipino. Our cavalcade of dependable and hardworking Filipinos, innately skilled, adaptable, and possessed with a heart for service are here, ready to work and to succeed with you.
Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. thanked several Arab states for granting clemency to Filipinos convicted of different offenses in their host countries. Speaking at his fourth State of the Nation address or SONA, the president said more than 600 Filipinos were granted clemency by the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and other states in the Middle East. The chief executive also extended his gratitude to Oman for helping facilitate the release of Filipinos held hostage by the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis released the 17 Filipino crew members of the MV Galaxy Leader in January, at least 14 months after they were held captive while sailing from Turkey to India on November 19, 2023.
Dahil sa ating masigasig ng pakikipag-ugnayan, sa loob ng 3 taon, nagawa ng kapatawaran ang mahigit 600 kababayan nating nahatulan dahil sa sari-saring paglabag sa batas sa ibang bansa, lalo na sa UAE, sa Qatar, sa Bahrain, at sa iba pa. And so, for their crucial and most beneficent sovereign intervention, I personally convey the entire nation's sincerest gratitude to the Sultanate of Oman, the United Arab Emirates, the State of Qatar, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the State of Kuwait, and to all the leaders of various countries that have granted clemency and have shown kindness to our beleaguered compatriots. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very, very much.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
In the meantime, the Philippine government continues to chart its friend to all, enemy to none foreign policy, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said, while assuring the public that the country is resolute in protecting Filipino interests both within its territory and abroad. Under this policy, the president said, the government continues to show that the Philippines is a country that is transparent and adheres to the international law. At the same time, President Marcos said Manila is unwavering in the protection of its rights and is improving its capabilities to defend itself in the face of threats to its sovereignty, an apparent allusion to the situation on the South China Sea, where several states, including the Philippines and China, are locked in a maritime dispute. In addition, the chief executive said the Philippines is leveraging its partnerships with countries to boost its position. Under the Marcos administration, the Philippine government had been doubling efforts to deepen its security relations with more like-minded states. More tangibly, President Marcos signed 2 laws, the Philippine Maritime Zones Act and the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, effectively reinforcing the Philippines' sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction over the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine Maritime Zones Act had explicitly defined the extent of Philippines' internal waters, archipelagic waters, territorial sea, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, and continental shelf that are fully in line with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitral Award on the South China Sea.
Sasabi natin na mataas na ang tingin ng buong mundo sa Pilipinas dahil maayos, patas at mahinahon tayong nakikitungo sa iba't ibang mga bansa. Tumutupad din tayo sa ating mga kasunduan at sa mga batas at panuntunan na pandaigdig na komunidad. Nagpapasalamat tayo sa ating mga magigiting ng OFW dahil sa kanila na ipamalas ang angking galing, kabutihan at puso ng Pilipino sa lahat ng sulok ng daigdig. Sa harap ng mga bagong banta sa ating kapayapaan at soberanya, mas maigting ngayon ang ating paghahanda, pagmamatsyag at pagtatanggol sa ating sarili. Ganun pa man, tayo pa rin ang nagtitimpi at nananatiling nagpapasensya, lalo na sa pagtanod sa ating buong kapuluan at sa pangangalaga sa ating interes. Subalit ngayon, mas pataas pa ang ating kumpiyansa dahil mas marami na tayong mga kasangga na magiging kabalikat natin sa oras ng matinding pangangailangan. Then as now, our foreign policy remains the same. The Philippines is a friend to all. The Philippines is an enemy to none. That will be our main focus as we, the Philippines, host the ASEAN Summit in 2026.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on the President's fourth State of the Nation address, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. highlighted the fulfillment of one of his key promises for Filipinos, the 20 peso per kilogram of rice under the Benting Bigas Meron or BBM na. Dubbed Benting Bigas Meron or BBM na, the program has been launched in areas across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. The rice is sourced from aging but good quality stocks of the National Food Authority or NFA purchased from local farmers. The NFA's buying price has been higher than some of the traders' prices, set at 17 pesos per kilogram for fresh and wet palay and up to 24 pesos per kilogram for clean and dry palay under the price range scheme or pricers. According to the NFA, at least 94,483 farmers have benefited from pricers since April of 2024. President Marcos assured the public that the rice program would be expanded to reach more Filipinos, backed by billions of pesos in government funding. The Marcos administration aims to expand the 20 peso per kilogram rice program in 1,500 kadiwa ng Pangulo or KNP sites in the country before the end of his term. To date, the Department of Agriculture or DA said the BBM na is available in 757 KNP centers, pop-up stores, and accredited stores. Since its launch in May, the DA reported almost 1 million Filipinos, or about 217,000 household beneficiaries, including senior citizens, persons with disabilities, solo parents, beneficiaries of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program or 4Ps, and the Walang Gutom Program and minimum wage earners.
Sa mga nagtatanong kung nasa na ang 20 pesos na bigas, ito ang aking tugon. Napatunayan na natin na kaya na natin ang 20 pesos sa bawat kilo ng bigas nang hindi malulugi ang ating mga magsasaka. Kamakailan lamang ay matagumpay nating nailunsad ito sa Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao, kagaya sa San Juan, Pangasinan, Cavite, Occidental Mindoro, sa Cebu, sa Bacolod, sa Guimaras, Siquijor, Davao del Sur. At dahil sa ilalaan nating 113 bilyong piso upang palakasin ang mga programa ng DA, ilulunsad na natin ito sa buong bansa sa pamamagitan ng daan-daang kadiwa store at center sa iba't ibang lokal ng pamahalaan.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
In a related story, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. vowed to take decisive action against unscrupulous traders who would manipulate the prices of agricultural commodities, especially rice. In his fourth State of the Nation address delivered at the Batasang Pambansa complex in Quezon City, the President said the current administration is focused on dismantling smuggling operations and going after offenders, stressing that economic sabotage cases await them.
Binabalaan ko ang mga trader na magtatangkang magmanipula ng presyo ng palay o ng bigas o manloloko ng mga magsasaka. Hahabulin namin kayo dahil ang trato namin sa inyong ginagawa ay tinuturing naming economic sabotage.
In September of 2024, President Marcos signed Republic Act or RA 12022 or the Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Act, classifying smuggling, hoarding, profiteering, cartel, and financing of these crimes involving agricultural and fishery products as acts of economic sabotage. Under RA 12022, offenders will face a penalty of life imprisonment and a fine of up to 5 times the value of the products involved in the crime. During his third SONA, President Marcos emphasized the need to reduce the prices of rice and other important commodities by boosting local production, supporting the agri-fishery sector from planting and harvesting to transport and marketing, and minimizing losses. President Marcos's plan to reduce the price of rice to as low as 20 pesos per kilogram has become a fulfilled promise as it is now being rolled out through Kadiwa stores nationwide. The extraordinary spike in rice prices prompted the Department of Agriculture or DA to declare a food security emergency for the staple in February, to allow the agency to release rice buffer stocks and stabilize the prices. As of July, he intensified the campaign against agricultural smuggling, hoarding, and profiteering, leading to the confiscation of more than 3.09 billion pesos worth of smuggled rice and agri-fishery products. The DA has also partnered with the Philippine National Police to ramp up the efforts against agricultural smuggling.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday directed the Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH to submit a list of flood control projects that were constructed since the start of his administration in 2022. During his fourth State of the Nation Address or SONA delivered at the House of Representatives, the chief executive said that during his inspection in areas that were affected by flooding caused by the weather disturbances last week, he personally saw some projects that were substandard and even collapsed. In order to stop corruption in the implementation of infrastructure projects, he ordered an audit and performance review of all flood control structures. He also urged the public to scrutinize the list once it has been published. Meantime, the president said the multi-billion peso Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge project will start construction this year. The 32-kilometer bridge will cross Manila Bay and link Mariveles, Bataan to Naik, Cavite. Once completed, the travel time between the two provinces will be reduced from 5 hours to only 45 minutes. At the same time, President Marcos noted that the rehabilitation of the Guadalupe Bridge in Makati City will be prioritized. Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. cited the crucial role that new technologies play in early disaster forecasting. These technologies, the chief executive said, include the Doppler radar, broadband seismic stations, and landslide sensor systems being used by the Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA and the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology or PHIVOLCS across the country. The government has always been zealous when it comes to monitoring hazard threats, especially amid climate change. President Marcos cited that 4 cyclones have affected the country in July and 12 more are forecasted to enter the Philippine area of responsibility in December. The Philippine president added 4 of the 24 active volcanoes are currently under volcanic unrest. President Marcos underscored the importance of continuous improvement, particularly because of successive disasters. He cited the Department of Science and Technology's Mobile Command and Control Vehicles or MOCOV as among the effective tools in rescue efforts. About 11 MOCOVs were already distributed to different local government units.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. promised to capitalize on the growing tourism sector to boost job generation in the Philippines. Speaking at his fourth State of the Nation address or SONA, the chief executive said government agencies including the Department of Tourism or DOT are doubling down on efforts to ensure that the remaining jobless Filipinos are employed within his administration's term. In 2024, the tourism industry contributed 8.9% to the national economy and provided 6.75 million direct jobs to Filipinos. Domestic tourism expenditure in 2024 reached 3.16 trillion pesos, surpassing the pre-pandemic level of 3.14 trillion pesos in 2019. International tourism expenditures, on the other hand, stood at 699 billion pesos, up from 600 billion pre-pandemic levels, despite the country missing the 2024 arrival targets. Among the sector's main employment generators are the hotels. Speaking at the Philippine Hotel Connect 2025 in Pasay City last week, hotel developers conveyed optimism about the prospects of hospitality and tourism in the country. Kevin Tan, President and Chief Executive Officer of Alliance Global Group, said Mega World Corporation intends to invest almost $2 billion in expanding its integrated resort developments. Tan recognized the amount of effort the government is putting into the development of tourism infrastructure, including new airports, rails, and new roads. Philinvest Development Corporation Senior Vice President Francis Gotianon shared the optimism, saying the growth trajectory of the Philippine economy and human capital paints a bright picture for the industry.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday honored the overseas Filipino workers or OFWs for their crucial role in promoting the Philippines through their talent and good character. In his fourth State of the Nation address or SONA, the president said the whole world looks up to the Philippines because it deals with different countries properly, fairly, and calmly. President Marcos also noted the country's compliance with the agreements with, as well as the laws and regulations of, the international community. The chief executive, however, acknowledged the danger and challenges faced by Filipino migrant workers, citing the case of the Filipino seafarers who were rescued after the cargo vessel carrying them sank in the Red Sea after a reported attack by Houthi rebels. The number of OFWs reached 2.16 million in 2023, up by 9.8% from 1.96 million in 2022. Cash remittances from overseas Filipinos rose by 4% to $2.66 billion in April, compared to $2.56 billion in the same period last year, based on the data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, in the same hall where he once said the state of the nation is sound, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday returned to Congress to mark the halfway point of his presidency, this time with a firmer call to action. In a brisk but resolute speech that lasted an hour and 10 minutes, slightly shorter than last year's 1 hour and 22 minutes, President Marcos mapped out the next half of his presidency, laying out a sweeping agenda on jobs, food, education, healthcare, infrastructure, good governance, and security. The president also directly confronted long-simmering public frustration with government inefficiencies. According to the president, the economy is doing well, business confidence is up, inflation is down, and jobs have increased based on the latest data. But all of these, President Marcos said, are meaningless, mere decoration if Filipinos are still struggling in their daily lives. His 2025 SONA drew at least 124 rounds of applause, with the loudest and longest for his order to audit billions of pesos worth of flood control projects, many of which have failed to address massive flooding in Metro Manila and nearby provinces.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is now live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.